Oni Shadow Ops Mission Report, Star Atlas Roadmap Scan Number 2. It was a cloudless night in Liblit. The sky was a canvas full of colours from the rich planets and the moons that occupied the heavens this close to the centre of the galaxy. Here, criminals worked under the cover of darkness. As one of the stations in the so-called high-risk zone, Liblit was well known as a place of thievery, illegal deeds, and every other activity that would constitute a crime under the Council of Peace regulations. If you were watching the movements in the streets that particular night, a young human, no more than 26 Earth years old, might have caught your eye. He made secretive glances as he passed the dark alleys, traversing into a decaying building that mimicked the style of the mud pre-voyage era. There, the silhouette of an old punab of above average size for his species awaited him. Grey whiskers, a scar across his right eye, and a conniving wide grin left no room for doubt that this was Mr. Spoogles, the very same character who was rumoured to be an original member of the Freedom Smile, the ship captained by the Jorvik leader. The bounty on his head was 50 million Atlas. Yeah, not the biggest fish in the sea, but hey, it was a fish nonetheless. At this point, the agent was interrupted by a very thin and angry voice that started to shout in the background. "Not the biggest fish!" shouted a tied-up punab. "You damned Marie scum, I will have your bail come through your mouth." "Wow," interjected the Maries. "Language? Didn't your mama teach you better than to interrupt your captor's glorious mission report?" "Glorious mission report?" said the punab, wheezing through his whiskers and laughing. "What are you, a freaking kid? Tell you what, you can report all about my ball." The Maries packed the punab's mouth with the dirtiest piece of cloth he could find. "As much as I'd like to hear about your fixation with private parts, please, wait a bit until I finish this, okay?" said the Maries official. Cried the muffled punab. Oh, blessed silence. Now where was I? All right, so there he was, a seemingly nervous human just before the mighty Mr. Spoogles, flanked by two not very friendly-faced Ooster androids. Better now? The punab tried to answer. The agent of the consortium was pretty sure it was another reference to the private bits. He shrugged and returned to his report. The punab started the meeting by saying, Well, look what the cosmic currents brought to our shores, lads." While laughing profusely, Spoogles looked at his henchman. "Our very own spy, leaking the juicy secrets of ATMTA Industries to our noble freedom cause. What a good little human, isn't that right, lads?" "That's right, boss, affirmative," said henchman 1. "The very best boy, boss," said henchman 2. "That's right," said the punab, sliding into a feeling of ecstasy. "The information you gave us last time was indeed very good. We managed to advance our agenda through the whole galaxy. The big boss was really pleased." "Mostly pleased, boss," said henchman 1. "Very appeased, boss," said henchman 2. "But it was not enough," said the furry pirate, suddenly changing the happy mood in the room. "We need more, Lieutenant Wen. Tell us what you uncovered." My whiskers get all curly at the sound of a good old data robbing. Wen started. "My lord, beginning with the marketplace. They are about to end the prototyping phase. From what I could gather regarding the blockchain front, their Atlas staking program design is progressing well. They also moved to assist their front-end engineers in prototyping the core user flow, which is going full steam right now. For their upcoming activities on that front, once the staking design is approved, they will start implementing it while preparing a strategy for the users to test the prototype." "I love this!" the punab shouted with glee. "Sweet Atlas stakes to plunder, lads." "This is a blessing, boss," said henchman 1. "A gift from the makers, boss," said henchman 2. "But please, good lieutenant, do proceed. What else do you have for us?" asked the entertained villain. "Well, regarding the Scream project, the team is still working on finishing the explicit requirements for the core gameplay mechanics. They have also started prototyping a new program for blockchain architecture while they refine it with the gameplay requirements. In terms of the economic developments, they have onboarded the Director of Economy of ATMTA, who will work directly on the modelling of the gameplay economic loops. Finally, I uncovered that they are adding more functionality to the WebGL prototypes, and that they have also onboarded an additional front-end WebGL developer to project, replied Wen. Intriguing. I suppose they'll be working on those mechanics for the next week as well, right, Wen? Asked the pirate while scratching his chin. You are correct, my lord, answered the lieutenant. Very well then, move on, replied the Jorvik, his tiny hand resting alongside his anxious face. After that, I also found some new information regarding the showroom, said Wen, restarting his report. As I mentioned before, it's well advanced, and they are working on some interesting details, said the lieutenant with a pause, allowing the anxiety to build in the room. Spill it out, human, said the Punab while jumping over the table. He brought the small dagger just a few inches from Wenn's face. Wen smiled and said, My lord, in my last report, I told you they had completed the game design and the concept art, so now they are building the basics of the gameplay mechanics. We might see the save load feature complete any day now. Also, the user interface models are in good progress. Once their basic visuals are approved, they will start to work on the terminal systems, integrating those into the game and testing with the pipeline. I actually managed to acquire this picture from their database. He added, also, they have managed to sync ATMTA blockchain architecture with the wallet technology, resuming the wireframe production on the blockchain front. This is sending chills down my old bones. Can you feel this, lads? Asked the Punab, still poking his dagger. Absolutely, resolutely, boss, said Henchman 1. In every screw of my body, boss, said Henchman 2. Lieutenant Wen kept going. This is not the end, my lord. The DAO also had a productive sprint. They are on the last steps of prototyping. The proxy CPI is nearing completion, and the DAO team is working together with the Atlas staking personnel. They are incessantly working on the wireframes necessary to work out data features inside the DAO architecture and TypeScript bindings to communicate with Solana programs. Finally, they are following the progress of the Goki Tribeca audits. Wen stopped to catch his breath, looking every one of the pirates in the room in the eye, before continuing. Finally, the system polishing work also had improvements. They managed to further update the terms of service and privacy policy format, while also working on optimizing the mobile users' profiles. Another very neat feature is that they added endpoints to Galaxy users to enable third parties to access the total circulating token supplies of Atlas and Polis in real time. The eyes of the Punab shined green with greed in the dark room. After a small pause, he said, This is enough, Lieutenant Wen. The boss will be even more pleased. I've got to say, Wen, you proved your value once more. It's time that you got your recognition. Punab made a small gesture, and Henchman 2 went to the back of the room, barely taking a minute before coming back with a big cube stamped with the Jorvik symbol. Before a confused Lieutenant Wen could react, Henchman 1's thick arms clamped down on him. As Wen tried to disengage, the Punab placed the box around one of his arms and said, Welcome aboard, Broda! The cube sprang to life after feeling the touch of the Punab, biting the arm of the lieutenant as a hungry beast. Agent M4 narrated in an epic tone before pausing and saying, Lieutenant Wen, in honor of our friendship, I will leave out the high-pitched scream that you let out, okay? Said the Maurice, with a perfectly blank face, even though he still had the communicator button pressed. The tired human murmured an answer, not paying attention to the dramatics of his Maurice companion. Wenn's gaze was focused on analysing their long-sought objective, the tattoo on his forearm that identified him as a legitimate member of Jorvik. If only he had more time. Maybe they could crack the technology and replicate it. But it wasn't any good to dwell on imaginary scenarios. Not right now, when there was so much at stake and so little time to act. Wen strained to focus his mind and started the walk towards the ship. Let's go. We have a flight to catch. Please continue your little play inside the ship. We aren't out of hot water just yet, said Lieutenant Wen to the Marines. The Marines grabbed the punab as gently as he would grab a bag of potatoes, which caused more groans from the angry captive. The Marines didn't seem to notice and continued his story as he entered the ship, signaling for 2 guards to drag the knocked-out oosters. After a few seconds, the cube entered into the human arm, moulding itself as a tattoo of the Jorvik pirates, said the agent, resuming his log. Before the ugly pirate could utter more of his lousy laughter, a very handsome Maurice appeared from the corner shadows. Everything progressed quickly after that. The Maurice spoke to the communicator on his arm. 2 flashes of teal light broke the darkness in the room, and the oosters were down in an instant. The punab grew pale as the first lights of the twin moons of Liblit, coming from a crack on the wall, gently kissed the beautiful silhouette of the famous bounty hunter that stood before him. Everything was over in the blink of an eye. Mr. Spoogles and his henchmen were arrested. We got the cube inside. Lieutenant Wen and our crew are ready to roll on the real mission. End of mission log. Shadow Ops Agent M4. At this point, Lieutenant Wen, who had been listening to the Marines give his report, was profoundly inclined to write a report of his own. Hell, he thought to himself. He should report that the Marines agent was living in his own reality, seeming to forget what Wen deemed important details, such as the agent's weapon jamming, the punab madly laughing with his custom laser Gatling gun, and the whole chaos that followed. He even opened his mouth to protest as he watched the Marines inject a drug into the punab, who eventually stopped resisting. Ultimately, Wen decided it wasn't worth it. Yargo has a few too many screws loose. It would be weird if he didn't, though, considering his past, thought Wen to himself and shrugged. The Marines sat in the chair next to the lieutenant. They fastened their seatbelts as their ship, an elegantly customized thrill of life from the Busan manufacturer, started powering up for the jump to space. The Marines opened a bottle of a bubbly drink and raised his legs to the edge of the ship's console. "Here we go, buddy," he said, giving the drink to Wen, before popping an intoxicating beverage for himself. "No drinking and driving," he said solemnly. "It's going to be a long journey," murmured Lieutenant Wen.